she began attending cosmetology school. At the same time, she was working at two restaurants, one of which was called the Tilted Kilt. Now, I had never heard of that place before I heard this case, but it is basically a chain of restaurants slash pubs that are kind of like Hooters, from what I heard. You know, the girls are scantily clad, and that's kind of what makes people want to go there. So, she had moved out into her own apartment. Well, it wasn't her own, she was sharing it with a roommate. Now, in June of 2013, Heather met a man named Sidney Moorer. He was the repairman who, he was a private contractor who would repair industrial appliances for places like restaurants, and he was often at the Tilted Kilt to do repairs. And he was 37 at the time that they met. He would be 38 at the time of the crime. And as I said, she was 20, so he was a lot older. But she expressed on Twitter her desire for older men. She and he started an affair, which she tweeted about regularly, you know, stating how hot he was and how much she wanted him, that sort of thing, without going into specifics. He was married, of course, for nearly 20 years, and he had 3 children. She knew that, though. At one point, he had considered hiring her to be the nanny of his children. I don't know how he thought that was going to go down, but anyway. So, in September of that same year, his wife, whose name was Tammy, she found out about the affair. And to say that she was enraged would be an understatement. Now, this woman, Tammy, is a complete psycho, okay? I'm just gonna say it. Not a nice lady at all. Not at all. So she found out, because it was all over the place, like nobody was really being quiet about it. I mean, everyone knew about this affair. So when she found out, she made Sidney call Heather in front of her and tell her that he was breaking up and that he never really cared about her and she was just, you know, a fling. But Tammy made him say it in a very nasty way and made him, you know, really insult her, make her feel terrible. You know, it wasn't like a mature thing where he just called up and said, we're gonna have to break up, you know, sorry, the end. No, it was like a hot mess. So that wasn't it. She had a lot of requirements that she put on her husband if he wanted to stay with her. And honestly, I don't know why he wanted to stay with her that badly that he would agree to any of these things. Because she does not seem like a prize to me. And I hope she doesn't hear me saying this because, yeah, I'm a little afraid of her. But anyway. So, did I say she was 42? Because she was 42 at the time. So, celebrate the holidays. She told the roommate what had happened, and she was very hysterical about it. And of course, the roommate told her, do not do it. Don't meet with him. And that was that. Well, I guess she met with him. Jump ahead to December 19th. The police happened to find Heather's car abandoned at Peachtree Landing Boat Launch. It was 8 miles from her apartment, and it was not a place that she would go to for any reason whatsoever. She didn't have a boat, and there was nothing else to do there other than launch a boat. But they found her car, and they checked the registration, or they checked the license, and they found that it belonged to her father. So they went to him and asked him, are you missing a car? Because we found this car abandoned. And he said, yeah, that's Heather's car. So they took him over to the car. He unlocked it. There wasn't anything amiss. Nothing weird. It just looked the way he expected. And they just told him to drive it home. And that was it. Nobody, checked it for fingerprints or DNA or blood or anything, So he brings it home, and everyone's trying to get a hold of Heather. She's not answering the phone. She's not at her apartment. She's not at her job. So the police searched the area where the car was found, and nothing. They checked with the guy who she went out on a date with, and it wasn't him. Nothing. He was cleared. So everyone was saying, hey, you gotta check out this guy, Sydney Moorer, and his wife Tammy. They really got it in for her. is video footage from their own security camera of them cleaning the truck right after the date in question. A deep clean of the truck, paying specific attention to the passenger seat. And then they saw him burn the rags that he used to clean with. Why would you burn your rags? Well, I don't know, but he did. Okay. So in February of 2014, they arrested Tammy and Sydney on kidnapping, murder, obstruction of justice, and indecent exposure. That last one was because when they searched them, they found on their phones they had taken pictures, like explicit pictures of themselves in public places. Okay, so it has nothing to do with this case, but it was still a thing. At some point, they also found that they had committed some kind of Medicaid fraud, also not connected to the case, but just something to note. So, they spent 11 months in prison awaiting the trial, and then they managed to get the money they needed to get out on bond, $100,000 that Tammy's mother put up by using her house as collateral. When they got out, they were saying they were getting so much hate from everyone around. They were getting death threats. Just all over social media, they were being attacked, and Sydney couldn't get a job. So, the authorities allowed them to move from South Carolina to Florida so he could find work. They did have to wear ankle monitors. At the same time, they started a smear campaign against Heather, going all over the place, saying that she was, stalking Sydney, that she was obsessed with him. He hadn't done anything here. He was just telling her to leave him alone when he called her. And that she was what would be a nice way to say it? An easy woman, so to speak. Just all kinds of mean stuff. So, eventually, the first trial came around, and that was the trial for Sydney. Now, they had dropped the murder charge for both of them at some point along the way because they felt they would not be able to make it stick, so they didn't want to even do it. So it was a kidnapping charge and obstruction of justice. So, the kidnapping charge got him a hung jury. So, it was a mistrial. He would need to have a second trial for that, but they were able to get him on obstruction of justice because he had denied using that payphone. That's the whole thing. He denied using the payphone when he definitely did. And normally, that would have been thrown out just because it's kind of minor amidst all of this big stuff. But since they couldn't get him on any